This week I tried out some new tricks while my players prepared for war. Oh, and they drew from the deck of many things. But first, when last we left our heroes... Hey everybody, it's Nick. So the players are in the city of Volta. They were trying to secure the freedom of their friend Travis after his attempted murder of a random bar patron. And to do this, they need to discover and eradicate a secret cult that is operating now under the city of Volta. They managed to locate and defeat most of the cultists last week, and that is where we ended the session. So the first thing that we did this week was I tried out a little narrative thing that I'd never done before, where I sort of moved the camera to a perspective that the players I was showing, but the characters themselves wouldn't actually know any of this information. And so I sort of had the end of the cultist battle wrap up, and I described that, and then the camera sort of panning back and up and moving across the waters and going south to their castle, but past their castle into the swampland southwest of their castle, where they knew a growing army of lizard folk was. And I sort of swept the camera over this army and described dozens of lizard folk and kobolds and bullywugs and shambling mounds, giant spiders, and this massive army of monstrous creatures that was going to come against their castle. And all of those creatures stopping because there was an enormous roar that was let out. And all those creatures turned and looked at this rise, and there was an enormous black dragon. And standing next to the black dragon, as the dragon gave the speech bolstering the spirits of the army that was about to attack, there was an individual next to the dragon. A human standing in approval over everything that was happening. One who was intent on the destruction of orcs. And this trick actually worked really well. It was actually pretty cool. All the things that I wanted to accomplish, it did. It sort of set up the fact that there was a large army coming against them and that they're not really quite prepared for it. They're going to have to take desperate measures to level the playing field. They were also incredibly suspecting that a black dragon was sort of behind everything, and I was just confirming that for them. They already knew lots and lots of clues that indicated that, and they had made that guess a while ago. But finally I wanted to reveal that there was another player in this game that they were encountering. Ararath, the individual they had met before, a previous PC from a previous campaign actually, that is sort of hell-bent on the destruction of all orcs. And I was showing them that, they met him and interacted with him earlier, and he didn't just disappear. He went off and did some things, and he has joined this group that are about to destroy this castle because they're going to destroy the orcs. And so I was sort of setting up all those things, and the move actually worked really well. None of the players said, like, wait, hang on, how do we know this? Or this doesn't make any sense. Or they never objected to it or were confused by it. I sort of set it up as, hey, this is a narrative thing. I'm showing you as players. Your characters wouldn't know this. And then jumping into it and describing it. They seemed to get a kick out of it, and I think it worked really well to set up the vibe I was going for, and so I think that trick worked. So if you want to use that in the future, feel free, because I think it was kind of successful. Obviously, you don't use it all the time, right? I've been DMing for years and never used this and use it for the first time, but sparingly in dramatic and narrative moments, I think it can work really well. But anyways, after that, I snapped the camera back to the players, and they finished off the cultists, and there was one who had escaped through a back door, and so I said, sort of, what do you do now? And they chased after that cultist, and he was in some sort of an office in the next room, and he was burning a bunch of documents and scrolls and everything, and so they quickly seduced him. That'd have been a very different encounter. No, they sedated him, they turned him into a mouse, actually, they polymorphed him. And he went scurrying off, and they were like, whatever. And they were worrying about what was in the room. They were sort of trying to loot the room and discover everything. They found a lot of interesting magic items, some documents that pointed to the intentions of the cult, as well as this small leather pouch. And inside this pouch was a deck of cards. Now, most of my players are new, but one of them is incredibly experienced, and he obviously very quickly suspected and realized that this was probably the deck of many things. And so I had one of the players roll an Arcana check and let him know that there is a lot of stories and legends about magical decks of cards, and that sometimes they have incredibly mundane and random effects, like giving you a cold or putting you in brand new clothes, and other times they have incredibly powerful effects, like granting you access to wishes or instantly killing you. And told him that this could definitely be one of those decks somewhere in there. It's a deck of things for sure. I don't know how many things, but definitely a deck of things. But basically, I wanted to set up to my players that if you are familiar with the Deck of Many Things in 5th edition, the DMG, then this probably isn't that one, because I had made a custom Deck of Many Things and sort of clipped the peaks and the valleys to make it less of a completely game-ruining item if, you find it the second to last session right before the boss fight. I didn't want it to do anything like that, and so I sort of clipped the amazing cards down to reasonable and the awful cards up to not so great, and so I will link below actually my custom Deck of Many Things. If you're looking for it, it's an interesting resource, maybe you can use it. And so the players were sort of debating, what do we do with this, and they were having a conversation like how I told them what you have to do is declare a number of cards. Any number of characters can choose to draw a number of cards, and after everyone is done drawing all the cards they're going to draw, all the cards are resolved, and then the deck disappears and reappears somewhere else. And so they said, okay, interesting, so are we going to save it? Do we draw some cards now, like 2 or 3? And then one of the characters was like, I want to draw all of them, guys. We should draw all of them. And I'm just sitting there, because I've never heard of that. I've never heard of somebody drawing all of the cards in a deck like this, and so I was through the roof. I was ecstatic. I thought it was going to be amazing, and that's what they did. And so one player drew 1 card, one player drew 11 cards, and one player drew 12 cards, and that was all 24 cards in my Deck of Many Things. I made sure to let the players all know before they drew anything that, like, nothing in here will instantly kill you. I didn't want them to fear that they would get ruined if they drew even 1 card, because I wanted them to draw from the Deck of Many Things. I wanted cool things to happen. I like including crazy powerful things like this in my game because I think it adds to the common language and the history of playing D&D, but also we play D&D to make wishes and fight dragons and beholders and draw from powerful legendary artifacts and conquer kingdoms. And if you're not doing some of those things in your campaign, you're playing for months and months, then what are you doing? And so, at least for me personally, I like to include those things. By the end of this campaign, my players will have done all of those things. So I think it's been pretty successful. But anyways, enough of that. Back to the game. So the players also found a small, like, box or case with 3 blue glowing gem-like stones in them, and I used Identify, and they figured out what do these things do, and they're used to close and seal off some sort of portal, specifically an interplanar portal, but it didn't identify exactly what portal or anything, but it tells you what it does and how to use it, and so I let them know that. And so there was a pool of water in the middle of the cultist lair, and so they hopped in and tried to see if there was a portal somewhere around there, and they swam down. And they swam down and down, and hundreds of feet down they swim until finally it opens up into this massive cavern, which they find out leads to open ocean. And so eventually, though, they discover that there is no portal here, and so they swim back up and just take the stones and leave. And maybe it's for some other thing, who knows, but we can't figure that out right now. We gotta go deal with other problems. And so I will let you guys know, actually, what those stones are for. So a bit of a behind-the-scenes look here. Those stones are part of a quest that the players never really interacted with. Nearby, underneath the waters, there is a nation of Triton, who are guardians of this ancient rift, a portal between dimensions, between planes, and it's connected to the plane of water, actually, and they are guarding it so that any leviathans and krakens and crazy things don't come through to the material plane. Well, it's particularly sealed off by these stones, and these stones were stolen by some Marrow and then delivered to this cult of the Leviathan, who were trying to bring a kraken or something here to the material plane. So it was something that the players could have interacted with at many different points. They chose not to, and so this is sort of the natural evolution of what happened. And so I like to do that sometimes, where quests that you don't follow up with continue going along without you, and this is sort of what has happened. So the stones are missing, the players have them, and something bad is going to come through that portal, and I don't know what this place is going to look like. Maybe it'll be after this campaign ends, who knows, but these Southern Isles are going to look very different in a couple of months, probably. But the players move on without discovering any of this. They go back to the cultist that they had not killed. They take him back up to the surface via teleportation circle, as opposed to navigating the sewers all over again, because they don't know the way out. They take it to the Magister lets Travis go free, all those things transpire, they do some more errands, and then they gather up the soldiers that they had recruited to fight for them. They put them on their airship, and they head out of Volta back to their castle. As they arrive back at their castle, I have some of the orcish scouts let them know information that they learned earlier as players in that sort of narrative scene. This is how big the army is and how much stuff they have and how ready they seem to attack this place. And I straight up told the players what their characters would have known. Your chances of victory are slim. Based on the numbers of people coming at you and how many people you have to defend your castle, your chances of victory are slim. You could maybe hold out a little bit, but winning? Probably out of the question. You would need more allies. You would need more soldiers to hold the field. And so they sit there and they think, and they're trying to figure out who could they call on? What could they do to gain some more allies? Who do they know? They go through their whole list of everyone they've interacted with, and who do they know and how could they get them here fast because they need allies quickly? And that's when Callister asked Travis to use the Codex Encabulum to summon a legion of devils to come and bolster their ranks. Travis waffled a little bit, but then he eventually agreed. And then Callister spent the next week attuning to the book and learning what all it could do and learning how powerful the devils he could summon, not demons, devils that he could summon are. And then after a week, he left the castle and is ready to go talk to the rest of his allies when a scout comes back and lets them know that the Lizardfolk army is on the march and battle will be upon them in less than a week. And that's where we ended this session. So next week, my players will prepare any last-ditch efforts to try and bolster their defenses, and then it is showdown time. One of the things I've realized about my DM style is I really like to make cool, powerful, awesome PCs and give them a lot of tools to get out of and avoid problems so that I can throw crazy things at them, very powerful entities. So they're going to be fighting a 17th level ranger and his Commodon pet and an adult black dragon and probably a couple of other nasty beasties in the middle of all that fight. And this is just 4 10th level players, and so I think by CR ratings, by encounter balance ratings, this is like double a deadly fight. But the players have a Scroll of Dominate monster. They have the ability to avoid or erase one event as if it never happened. They've got allies, they've got magic items, they've got a wish. So I feel like I have given them plenty of tools to be able to solve any problems that come their way, even if it is crazy. So next week we might see a couple of PCs die, who knows, but it will be the epic showdown finale of our campaign. So make sure you come back next week to see what happens. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.